Hello. I thought today I'd talk a little bit about voice and point of view. I think the two things are linked. When I started out writing, I struggled to find a voice that was authentically mine. I was always trying to copy other people. And people would say to me, "You just have to find your voice." And I would be baffled by this and struggle and think, where is my voice? I don't know what my voice is. I don't really know what that means. Literally, all it means is your own voice. Of course, that's what it means. But when I was trying to get words down on the page that sounded fluent, that were exciting to read back to myself, I was really ill at ease with how clunky everything sounded. And it was because I wasn't relaxed enough. You have to just relax to let your voice come out. And actually, the greatest compliment anyone could ever pay me about my writing is that they can hear me in it. So relax and allow your own voice to come through. Surely that's easy. It's not as easy as that, of course, and point of view does come into it. And I think people struggle a lot with point of view. They worry, should I choose first person? Should I choose third person? What are the differences? What are the pros and cons? I think for me, I always have to play around. I'm not always entirely sure of where I want a piece to emerge from, first of all. So even if I have a clear idea of the character, I'm not always sure about who's narrating the story, and I do have to play around. Do I want a really immediate sounding voice where the narrator is internal and telling the story? In other words, do I want to write from the first person? I said this, I saw that. It can be a minefield because actually, if you just choose first person, it can close everything down so that you are only seeing or hearing or tasting or experiencing what that character is in any one moment. You're not able to get outside of their experience. You have to use other devices, perhaps like text messages or letters or relayed information. And that can mean that you fall into the trap of too much exposition. So you can end up with characters coming on scene, as it were, to deliver information, and it can sound really clunky. So you have to be aware of that. But sometimes that close voice, whether it's close third, which is slightly a pace behind, or that first person narrator, it can be so immediate and so exciting. It can bring a voice very clearly to the reader straight away. So if you think about books like How I Live Now by Meg Rossoff, the YA novel, it's so immediate. You can hear Daisy's voice very, very clearly in your head as you read. Or the Clarice Bean novels by Lauren Child, again, that voice is very, very clear. And that comes from the point of view, from the first person narrator. But you can also play God. You can be omniscient. You can walk through your story, silently stalking all your characters, really, sort of inhabiting their internal and external worlds and darting between one and the other. When I was writing my novel, I started it in close third because I knew a lot about my main character, Gordon. And it seemed obvious to tell the story from his point of view. But actually, it was such a big endeavour writing an adult novel compared to the middle grade novels I'd written before. And I realised I needed much more fluidity. I needed a much bigger canvas, really. And so I rewrote the whole thing in Omniscient, having done a lot of research into how that would work, because it's not my natural voice. It's not my natural choice of point of view. But it meant I could vary the camera angles. So in the same way that Elizabeth Jane Howard in the Cazalet Chronicles lets you into the worlds of all her characters, I tried to do the same in my retelling of my novel. And I took a lot of inspiration from this writer, Colin McCann, whose book, Letters to a Young Writer, I thoroughly recommend to anyone writing and wanting to explore different ways of doing so. He has a lovely bit that he writes about camera angles, which I'm going to read to you. It's a chapter called Be a Camera. Be a camera. Language us into vision. Make us feel as if we're there. Colours, sounds, sights. Bring us to the pulse of the moment. See the whole landscape at first, then focus in on a detail and bring that detail to life. It's a good trick to assume that you have a number of changeable lenses. Be fisheye, be wide angle, be telephoto. Zoom in, zoom out, distort, sharpen, divide. Imagine yourself into the actual camera. Find the words that are glass and shutter both. This is your mind's eye. I love that. And whenever I'm thinking of where I need to be in the story at any one time, I think of that camera. I think, have I got it on my shoulder? Am I able to zoom in and zoom out of all the different places and mindsets and experiences? Or have I got the camera? Am I actually sort of in the camera? Am I the character, the main character narrator, first person, walking through the story? And that really, really helps. It also helps to remember that writing with all the senses, that is also point of view. What can your character see? Yes, but what can they smell? What can they taste? What do they feel? How do they touch? All of those things, that all comes into point of view. And of course, point of view is also opinion. So do with character. So that's why I always talk about character first when I'm teaching, because I really believe that all story comes from character. So I hope that's been useful to you if you're thinking of playing around with point of view and voice and you're not quite sure where to start. First of all, just start with how you speak. Have a go at that. Play with that. And then if you've written something in first person and you're not quite sure, just rewrite it. Rewrite the same scene in a different point of view and see how it falls, because it might be that changing it into third person, a close third, so it's almost like I, but it's only from the point of view of one person, but in the third person, maybe that gives you a bit more flexibility. And if you want even more flexibility, have a go at rewriting it in the third person from an omniscient narrator's point of view, that sort of God's eye view, and see what happens. It's fun to play around and you never know where it's going to take you. So as always, I say, have fun and play with your writing.